Danse, wapastim tsikasun. Hello, my name's Jason Big Charles, colonized name Jason Big Charles, traditional name's Whitehorse. And today I'm going to be passing on some teachings about Mamawayoin, Wahkumaganach, or Wahkumagan, and Wahkohtuin. So that's community or living in a community and family and relationships and how we traditionally look at those relationships or relations within a community. So traditionally, when we look at the term Mamawayoin, that talks about living in a community. And traditionally, the community or the community that you live in is looked at as within that community, we are all living in Wahkohtuin, or we are all related and we're all connected somehow in that community. Not in terms of, say, the relatives we conventionally or normally look at, our brothers and our sisters and our maternal and paternal relatives, those immediate relatives. However, when we talk about Mamawayoin, traditionally, we treat everybody in the community as though we're part of that immediate family. And that's where we come up with the term Wahkohtuin, or kinship and relationships and those connections, especially in terms of a community. We look at it as living in Wahkohtuin, or living with those connections or relatives we have within the community. So traditionally, growing up, even myself, when we were brought up, we were taught to look as the extended family was basically looked at as our immediate family. So our cousins, they were looked at as our brothers and our sisters. Our aunts and our uncles, they were looked at as our mothers and fathers, and we'd refer to them that way. So with my aunts, I would call them mother or nimama, and made sure that the teaching that were passed down was that we treat them like our mothers, all of our aunts and all of our uncles. And Papa, we treat them as though they were our fathers, and we even refer to them as such when we were visiting them or when we're talking with them. And even beyond that, when we've got our mosum and our nokum, my grandmothers and grandfathers, within the community, we'd look at all of the elderly people as our grandmothers and grandfathers, and all of the elderly women, we'd call them kohkum. Didn't matter if they were part of your immediate family, whether they were an aunt or a close relative, we'd still refer to the elderly women as kohkum or nohkum, my grandmother. And with all of the elderly men, we would refer to all of them as mosum or nemosum, my grandfather. And that's the way we were taught to treat them, that we're all living within that Wahkohtuin. So we're all related and we're all connected, especially when we're part of that community. Because traditionally our communities were pretty isolated and everybody knew everybody and everybody treated everybody else as family. So that's where the real nature of that term Wahkohtuin, or my relatives and my kinship and my connections, it really referred to that whole, how we looked at the people around us within our community. Now, when we look at Wahkomagan, our family, that refers to that immediate family. So when I say Wahkomaganach, that's all of my family members. So my brothers, my sisters, my father, my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, those are the ones that I would refer to as Nawahkomaganak. Those are my family. And that's how you sort of identified those family units or those Wahkomagan within Mamawayoan or within the community. However, that, like I said, that whole community was looked at as Wahkohtuan, living in Wahkohtuan, with everybody's connected, everybody's related somehow, but we're all somehow connected. So it was only when we're referring just specifically to our immediate family, that's when we'd say Nawahkomaganak, or my family members. And when people are talking to you, they would ask you who your family is, or what family you belong to. That's when they'd refer to your family as Kawahkomaganak. Who are your family relations? However, when you visited another community or something, they would ask you, like, about your Wakohtuan, like, who are your connections, who are your relatives, your kinship. And that's where they'd refer more to that community, like, what community do you belong to, and who are your connections in that community. So Mamawayoan was sort of that broader family unit, which is an entire community. And within that entire community, we got Wakohtuan, and then we go to the immediate family, which is our Wahkomagan, or our Wahkomaganak, all of our close relatives. But like I said, growing up, those relationships were really kept after, and we were always taught to make sure that we knew where we fit within all of these families. Because aside from that, the traditional thing that would happen within families is our kohkoms, our grandmothers, and even some of our mosoms, our grandfathers, what they would do is they would sort of claim a child member of the family and call them, say, well, that's my husband, or that's my wife. And that relationship would be treated as though they were really connected with that family relationship, not in terms of really being a husband or a wife, but just that family connection. So like for myself, we had an elderly lady living next door to us. And when I was growing up, she claimed me as her husband. She said, that's my old man, that's my husband. And from that, how she claimed me, that didn't mean that we were man and wife. It just meant that we were related to each other in that sense, that she claimed me as part of her family, as her saying that I was her husband. But from there, right up until the day they left us from this earth, that elderly lady's children would refer to me as their dad, and they'd call me dad or Napapa. And we had that relationship throughout our lives, where even though they were much older than me, they still referred to me as dad or their dad. And they treated as such, so they sort of adopted as Wahkomagan, as a part of their family. And we kept that relationship, and even in visiting or helping each other out, we treated each other as family members. So we see that within traditional views on family or Wahkomagan, they were very carefully looked at, so that we all sort of looked after each other and sort of took care of each other and treated each other with that relationship, where if somebody So if somebody's mother claimed me as their dad, then it was my responsibility to treat their kids as though they were my kids. And by that it means that I had to take care of them and make sure that their well-being was taken care of, making sure they were happy and making sure that they didn't need any help. But that's how those relationships formed. And I think a lot of that is being lost today, and a lot of people might see that in their families where you're, even within an immediate family or within Wakamagan, where people aren't really close to their brothers or their sisters. That's the whole moving away from that traditional view of Wakamagan or the family and picking up the Western view on family, where you have your immediate family and that was looked at as the family unit. Some might have some higher value on the extended family, like cousins and uncles and aunts, but not as much as a traditional Nihiao Wahkumagan or a traditional Cree family, where throughout life we treated our cousins as our brothers and our sisters throughout our lives, and we were taught to treat our aunts and our uncles as our mothers and fathers throughout our lives. And even when you referred to them, you'd call them as such. You'd say mama or mama, or you'd call them nohtawi or nigawi, mother and father, and refer to them and treat them as such with the same level of respect. But we've seen a lot of that changing now with colonization, where the extended family is not really valued as much, and we don't really look at our cousins as our brothers and our sisters. I rarely hear anyone now calling their aunts or their uncles nigawi or nohtawi, calling them father or mother. They refer to them as their uncle, which sort of sets that division where we're affirming or affirming to everyone around us that they're not part of our family, our immediate family. They're kind of a distant relative, more outside of that Wahkumagan. So you see the difference between the traditional family, which was where the whole community was part of a big family and treated as such. And now it's very much moved away from that, where we no longer look at communities as wahkotuin or even as far as wahkumagan, our own families. We don't treat them as closely as we used to. So really the traditional mamaweoin, or the traditional community, has become more of a Western community where we don't have those relationships. We don't go to our neighbors and call them nigawi or nohtawi or kohkum or musum. We don't refer to them. We just refer to them by their names. Because when I was growing up, it was considered very rude to refer to your uncles or your cousins as by their first name. You were supposed to refer to them as your father or your mother, or as your sister or your brother. And that has very much changed, and we don't see that very much anymore. So our elders teach us that it's in order to reclaim a lot of those values that we had with tight, closely related communities, we have to go back to that teaching, basic teaching first of Wahkumagan, the family, and Wahkohtuin, which is our broader, our relatives and connections, but mainly how it fits into Mamaweoin, or how it fits into the community and brings the community together. So that's what I've I've been taught about Wahkohtuin and Wahkomagan, and I hope you learned a little bit today. Uksamaga.